Good morning and welcome back to White Mountain Today here on White Mountain TV 16. Joining us in the studio for the first time in a long time is Clare Long.
I thought you guys moved. I'm so glad I found you.
How are you, Clare?
I'm doing fabulous, and the weather out today is amazing. This is like
it is
here in another day here in paradise.
Yeah, I got up this morning and it was cold.
Yeah,
but it was like this is going to be a nice day.
I know. 50 center, Briggs Bunker,
oh,
right there,
absolutely.
sitting there saying a 50
It is
center.
definitely a 50 center. So
yeah.
A beautiful day.
Yes.
So Clare, we've been able to watch the videos that you've done.
Oh gosh.
And the one about animal skulls.
Isn't that fun?
I never knew about the sloping skull, about going into burrows. I'm like, oh my God, it makes so much sense.
Yeah, flatheads to get into that tunnel. Yeah, because you don't want to bang it going in.
That's why I don't
get a little bit of a headache.
That's why I don't live in a tunnel. But
I know.
But I love
Some of us
those.
have tunnel vision.
And then you did the one about the pelts and stuff.
Yeah.
But
so
just
fun.
so much fun, and just the information, and plus it's you, so it always makes it that much more fun.
Thank you.
But it's just great, and you have been doing this type of stuff for years.
Yeah, well, I guess I got a degree in this stuff and then came up and worked for the Appalachian Mountain Club in 1991.
Wow.
Yeah. But I'm not that old. I did live through disco, but disco. But I'm, but I'm not that old.
There you go.
Or I hold it well. Well, this is a fascinating place because we get all the four seasons, and we're going to be talking about fall very shortly. And this is like one of my favorite seasons because there's so much changing, and you don't really know it. One of the biggest senses that's experiencing fall is your sense of smell. When you think of the fall, what do you think of? Other than pumpkin lattes, but
that I don't. Well, it's funny. Spring I would think of smells more, so I'm going to have to kind of focus on that. But it is kind of the leaves, I don't know what the smell of leaves is, but there is a smell.
There
of
is
leaves.
a smell, isn't there? Yeah. People, and there isn't a name like when rain on the pavement afterwards. That's called petrichor, but there's no real name for the smell of fall.
Interesting.
So it's what everybody kind of calls it.
Yeah.
One of the big smells that you're smelling is something, and this is the greatest name. I was like, oh man, if I had a dog, I'm naming it this: Geotrichum candidum. Wouldn't you be Geotrichum?
Candidum.
Or maybe not. Okay, but whatever. That is the fungus that breaks down the leaves when they fall down into the ground.
Oh, really?
And they are giving off that sugar smell because the sugars in the leaves, because that's what's happening during photosynthesis.
Yeah.
The whole time. So what's happening is this fungus is releasing all these wonderful smells that you're associating with fall. Not all of them. Some of them also come along.
Well, that's really cool. And then there's the smell of dry leaves versus the smell of damp leaves and something like that.
Yes.
And speaking of leaves, I've lived in my same house for 30 years.
Wow.
And at the bottom of my hill, so we have like 6 maple trees. And so all the maple trees.
And you also have the Santa, the Santa
the runway. Yeah. But that's why we have to clear it so that we can put the runway down so Santa Claus can find the house. But all these leaves, and so I rake them down and I put them in this one area. It's maybe, it would be the size of like a big living room or something like that. And I rake the leaves in there. For 30 years I've raked the leaves, and I rake them in and it's, high pile of leaves. And then in the spring, it's down low again. You would think after 30 years that it would be 10 feet.
Yeah.
But it's not, and it just breaks, and I find it so fascinating. You kind of dig down a little, and it's like, well, where are the leaves from 10 years ago?
Yes.
That to me, that's been kind of the neat in the leaves in the exact same spot, and where are they going?
It's this amazing thing. It's the geotrichums. It's all of these other funguses. This fungi. Fungi. No, you're a good fungi. I was going to say you're the fungi. But all this that's breaking it down, and that's one of the great things about the whole natural system here, this whole nutrient system. It's up there, you're created, you have all these wonderful leaves, they fall and they decompose, and they put the nutrients back in the ground that they took out as they came up through the tree and started creating the leaves. So it's all this nutrient cycle, it's called. It's this whole cycle. But I'm so glad you brought up that whole thing about raking leaves, because inside those leaves are next year's butterflies, next year's moths, bees. The bumblebee, the queen bumblebee, goes down only just about an inch below the ground during the winter. So those leaves act as insulators for this.
Really?
So when people rake the leaves, I get it. The lawns are beautiful. Let's keep up with the Joneses, make sure our lawns look great. But consider not. There's a whole thing by the Xerces Society, which is butterflies.
Yeah.
And it's called Leave the Leaves. And you can leave a little bit of the leaves because underneath there are all the eggs, the caterpillars.
Yeah.
The ones that everybody thinks about, the woolly, the woolly caterpillars or the woolly worms. Those are basically Isabella moths. Great food source for the birds, the migrating birds that are coming back up. So it's kind of this whole cycle.
Oh,
so by
really?
us raking up those leaves, we disturb the home basically
that are in the ground
right,
already.
Right. So you can leave some of your leaves, but what you were doing is fabulous. Taking it all the front, because then that's an area where they will all hibernate basically. Like that woolly caterpillar can freeze solid. It'll just kind of slowly slow its temperature down, lower its temperature, and just freeze solid. And then when the spring comes, it just kind of thaws and then pupates and becomes that Isabella moth and then feeds the birds that are coming back up. So all these things that we have here that are going into almost a hibernation or a diapause are part of next spring. And it's all cyclical. It's all a cycle.
Can you rake the leaves in the spring?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. You can. Well,
Or mow the lawn,
they
or,
say wait.
Yeah.
Wait till almost the end of spring to do that. But if you have to rake your leaves because you want the lawn, put them on your garden and put them in an area just like what you were doing. A lot of put them around the base of trees, because what happens is as those geotrichums decompose the leaves, then those nutrients go back right into the ground, into the soil underneath the tree.
That makes total sense.
Doesn't it? Isn't it amazing?
And then I don't have to rake them as far.
I know.
I'm don't tell my kids, because we pile them all around the leaves. The trees will look like they're upside down.
Yeah. Well, I'm surprised people don't jump in your leaf pile.
That has happened.
Oh,
it has happened.
Yeah.
I do remember that when somebody just kind of drove by because we had this big, massive leaf pile.
Yeah.
But it is one of those things. It's so great to all kind of the nature that is going on. And we were talking before about butterflies.
Yes.
And about, we've kind of gotten onto a monarch butterfly thing.
Yes.
And I've always loved monarch butterflies, so it was always a cool thing.
Yes.
And then, so my wife started bad way, some butterflies and some milkweed.
Yes.
And then now we have a little not aquarium, a little, little
terrarium type thing.
But it's a net. And feeding the butterflies, so hopefully they can grow.
Yeah.
And I read a great thing online the other day, and I posted it, about collecting milkweed pods.
Yes.
And then you can drop them off, and then because the milkweed population in the state is like at 20% of what it used to be.
Crazy.
And it's the only food for monarchs and numerous other creatures.
Yes.
So you can pick up milkweed pods.
Okay, and if anybody hasn't seen one, I brought one.
This is a milkweed pod. Well, I don't know where we'll see that. But that is a milkweed pod. And actually, if you hold it, Claire, then we can zoom in. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Now, that one's a little premature to take off.
Right.
Because you want them to get to the point where they dry and they kind of start cracking open.
Right.
And then you can take them to the UNH Cooperative Extension,
Yes.
73 Main Street in Conway, and drop them off, and then they'll spread them throughout the state. And I thought, brilliant. That is just such a great idea.
It's a great idea. Yes,
and, and I remember, because I remember growing up, and for whatever reason, my mom liked milkweeds, and I liked them as a kid because you'd crack them and it'd be that milky thing.
Yeah, and then all the silk that flies with the seeds on them and everything, and a lot of animals will use that silk to make winter nests. Like you'll find squirrels and things. The silk that it's called silk that transport the seeds through the air. These very, very light seeds, so they don't have to go very deep either. So if people want to create their own milkweed area there, they don't have to go very deep. They just need to be just below the surface.
Cool.
In order to germinate.
And it's amazing when one of those is dry and ready, and you open up, and the amount of stuff. It's like the comforter that you put in your dryer by accident. The fluff is all over the place. And so I thought that was a really cool thing to be able to try to get that.
I'm so glad you put that there.
Yeah, try to get that out there.
Yes.
And it's terrible. The monarch population in the world is they're almost
declining.
I think they're almost to the critical.
Right.
And you'd still think, well, there's millions of them. It's like, yeah, but there should be billions of them.
Right. Yeah. At one point, yes. And it's things like people needing to do something different with the lawns. You know, there's 40 million acres of lawn out there, and that's basically a desert.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a lot of food. It doesn't have a lot of nutrients. It doesn't have a lot of places for animals to hide or any of that stuff. So consider creating a wild place. You know, let it go and put a little sign there just saying, you know, pollinator corner, you know, supposed to be messy or whatever it is. That's what a lot of people are doing now, is that they're dedicating a corner of the lawn for wildlife.
That's great.
Creating pollinator gardens and some of these other things. So dump your leaves in your wild garden.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Now you brought some leaves today.
I did, just to talk about that. Yeah, because this is a big time, especially for up here. A lot of leaf peepers, people coming up to see what's happening out there in the fall. And what's happening is the changes, well, the temperatures you just mentioned this morning was cold. It was like, oh, it's beautiful. Oh, just gorgeous out there. But what's happening is the trees have these amazing leaves. And this is actually a rhubarb leaf. So it's...
It's just fun to bring in.
It's just because it's really big. There's a lot of chlorophyll here. So the green is chlorophyll. And what this does is it helps the tree photosynthesize, basically making food. So the tree can make its way through and continue to make more leaves and continue to grow.
Right.
So this chlorophyll is in any of the green growing leaves. It's also in pine needles. Some of these other evergreens, it's all green. It's this chlorophyll. That's what they need to grow.
Right.
But during the fall, when it gets cold, and also when the days are shorter, there are things that happen in trees as well as in animals as the days grow shorter. But the temperature is one of the things that triggers the tree to stop putting chlorophyll, to stop having the chlorophyll inside the leaf, and then it starts to basically decompose out of the leaf. So what we're having here is green is called chlorophyll. The red is called anthocyanin. So a little lower. Okay. Oh, there we go. There we go. Leaf. You can still see some of the chlorophyll in the right up here towards the veins because the leaf was still trying to create this food factory.
Yeah.
The reason trees drop these leaves is and there's water in them, and they take up a lot of water. They use a lot of the water, and the tree is going to basically go into its own little hibernation during the winter because it doesn't want too much water in it because it'll freeze. And when water freezes, it cracks and it breaks, and it causes damage. And that's why they drop these leaves, because they're thin, the water would crack, they would break, and it just takes a lot of energy.
So smart.
Right? Isn't it? Trees are so smart. They're so schmat, and they talk to each other too, but we can talk about that next time. But these are the sugars. This is the anthocyanin. You get a lot of things. You can see this is a maple. There are other trees that also go red. So this anthocyanin, what's really cool about well, there's lots of really cool stuff about anthocyanin, but when you go to the desert, there are also leaves on plants that are also red. And the red helps to combat the damage from the red spectrum of sunlight coming through. Yeah, so the thing, who knew?
It's amazing, and it's one of those things that, as the chlorophyll drains, for some of the trees, you're seeing what would be the natural color of the leaf without the chlorophyll because you see the green, which is, again, fascinating stuff.
Yes.
And,
because this red is always
it's always there, but you just don't see it.
The yellow is the same. Okay, it's kind of a lame yellow leaf for my garden. Sorry. My kale didn't make it through very well, but the same thing, and the yellow is called xanthophyll, and that starts with an X. Whatever. Somebody had to do something with that letter in the alphabet, whatever it is. But the yellow, again, it's always there. You can see that there's a little bit of green there. The chlorophyll was masking the yellow that's there. Yeah. So there's anthocyanin, which is the red. The yellow is xanthophyll. And then the orange is carotene, like what you find in carrots. And
there's not going to be a quiz later, is there?
Well, maybe spelling.
I'm a little worried.
Just put an X in where you're not really sure.
I mean, I love this stuff, and if you had gotten here at 7:30, we would probably still be talking for 2 hours about this stuff because it's just so amazing, and we live in this area.
Yes.
that this is in our backyard, you know,
Yes.
and you walk from place to place and you find these different things. I'm not a mushroom person, but the amazing things with mushrooms and fungi and everything else that are out there.
Yes.
And all of the different plants, rhubarb with the giant leaf. So it's a lot of fun, and I'm so glad that you could come by today, and you should come by every week.
Thank
and
you.
we'll talk about different
That'd be
different
so
things.
fun.
It
I would totally
and we'll,
love
you know,
to do
we'll
that.
talk about different as we move into it, because in a month, all this will be gone.
It's all going to be gone.
And then decomposing, and
Right.
I am definitely going to put leaves around the base of my trees.
Nice.
Because plus also, you know, as they get older, you know, you start to see the roots as stuff. So I could
Yes.
kind of add some
Insulation.
insulation. What's the other word? Detritus.
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 Yes.
Look at that. Big word. You know, which will help kind of build up and protect the roots.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Be kind to your trees.
There you go.
And they will be kind to you.
Well, Claire, so good to see you,
Glad
as
to see you.
always.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again next week. And we'll be back here in a minute on White Mountains Today.